Kathy looks frozen on my screen.
Okay, Mr. Mayor, we're now live. Please go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. I will call the meeting to order. Welcome, everybody. Our land acknowledgement statement. We acknowledge with respect the history, spirituality, culture of the Anishinaabe, the people of the three fires known as Ojibwe, Odawa, and Potawatomi nations who have inherited this land from time immemorial, and further give thanks to the Chippewa Saugeen and the Chippewa Nawash, now known as the Saugeen Ojibwe Nation, and the traditional keepers of this land. We also recognize the Métis and Inuit whose ancestors shared this land and these waters. May we all, as treaty people, live with respect on this land and live in peace and friendship with all its diverse people. Moving on for agenda, approval of the agenda. Is there any item that council members would like to add to the agenda here tonight? Seeing none, Madam Clerk, please go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through your chair, staff have a couple of additions to be added to new business with respect. The first is an update regarding the COVID-19 emergency declaration to be added to new business. And the second is an update regarding the third reading of Bill 27, the Working for Workers Act, which happened today, being receipt of the third reading. So both of those discussions will be added to new business.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. I will read the recommendation that an update from regarding the COVID-19 emergency declaration be added to the new business, and that an update regarding third billing of Bill 27 Working for Workers Act be added to the new business, and that the agenda be approved as amended. Someone to move to put on the floor, please. Moved by Councillor Barfoot, second by Councillor Colburn. Is there any discussion on the motion before us? Seeing none, a show of hands, all in favor? It's carried. Madam Clerk, I do not see Councillor Thompson here yet. No, okay. Declaration of recurring answers. You can declare any time you see fit during the meeting. Minutes of the previous meetings. The recommendation is that the minutes of the special council meeting held on November 9th, 2021 be adopted. Someone to move put on the floor, please. Moved by Councillor Sullivan, second by Councillor Pringle. Is there any discussion on the motion before us? Seeing none, a show of hands, all in favor? The motion is carried. Our next recommendation is that the minutes of the special council meeting held on November 24, 2021 be adopted. Someone to move to put on the floor, please. Moved by Councillor Sullivan, second by Deputy Mayor Carlton. Any discussion on the minutes or on the motion? Seeing none, a show of hands, all in favor? The motion is carried. We're down to announcements. We have none. No public hearings. Delegations.
Mr. Mayor, if I may.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Deputy Mayor.
Sorry, I'm just looking at the minutes of previous meetings, and I think we've only passed 2 of them, and there are actually 3 listed.
Did I miss one, Madam Clerk? Oh, sorry. The recommendation is that the minutes of the council meeting held on November 10th, 2021 be adopted. Someone to move to put on the floor, please. Moved by Councillor Colburn, second by Councillor Pringle. Any discussion on that motion? See none, all in favor, show of hands. We're now down to delegations. Our 2022 Council Committee Remuneration Committee. I'm going to read the recommendation first. That the Council of the Township of Georgian Bluffs receives the report prepared by Council Remuneration Committee, CRC, regarding council remuneration policy, and a bylaw be passed to adopt the council remuneration policy attached to this report as Appendix A, and to repeal the bylaw 2018-86. Someone to move to put on the floor, please. Moved by Council Barfoot, second by Council Pringle. I will now welcome the members of the Council Remuneration Committee. Ann Doohan, Ann Snyder, and Luke Zanzik. Chair Newman, please go ahead. Ann?
Thank you very much. Yes, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay, I'm very sorry. I couldn't make the connection off my desktop, so I'm just audio via phone. Thank you for the introduction. And first and foremost, I think both Anne and Luke and I would like to thank you for allowing us to serve the township in completing this completing this review and report to you. I'm privileged this is the second time I've done it, so it was great to see everyone back around the table again. We're just going to take a few minutes of your time, and then we'll ask for questions when we come to the end of it. As you can see from the slides, and Brittany, if you can move over to slide 2, which is the overview. Those are the items that we will be addressing in just a few moments. So Brittany, you can move forward then to the background. As you are aware, we'll just have a reminder to everyone. Bylaw 2018-06 established the remuneration expenses for the 2018-2022 council term of office. Review of the council remuneration policy is required for the upcoming term of 2022-2026. As you've just mentioned, the review committee was composed of the 3 of us. And we reviewed and relied on a couple of important aspects of our review. We reviewed the 2018 reports and recommendations, the 2018 AMCTO Municipal Compensation in Ontario report, and enjoyed and certainly listened carefully to the survey and the interviews from this council. We also benchmarked against comparative municipalities. We thank the staff very much for updating those that data for us. It was very helpful, and also, of course, for their continued support services as we went through this. We relied again, as we did pardon me. No, I'm moving on to Luke. Is Luke on? Hello?
Luke is on, Anne. Yeah.
Okay, Luke, you're going forward with guiding principles?
Yes, I would like to talk a little bit about the guiding principles that were carefully crafted by the committee 4 years ago, and we slightly adapted those, but in fact, we thought they were very solid. First one was really the need that compensation should be clear and easily understood by ratepayers. So we kept a very straightforward position on that in terms of what was actually remunerated and against what kind of criteria. We also thought it was very important that remuneration should not be a barrier to attract candidates and to serve in the office of the mayor, of the deputy mayor, and the councillors. But at the same time, also we wanted to make sure that we were in line with remunerations with peers, with other municipalities in the areas. And the next slide will actually show which municipalities we used as for comparison. We wanted to make sure that the responsibilities, the commitments, and the accountabilities associated with the roles of mayor, deputy mayor, and councillors were transparent, that they were clear, fiscally responsible. For example, with regards to what would be expenses that could be paid for what kind of purpose. And then last but not least, we also wanted to maintain a compensation structure that was performance-based, so that it would allow for preparation for council meetings, but also to encourage members to attend those meetings and be able to participate. If we go to the next slide, then we will see the comparators. Who do we use? And of course, we didn't want to do this out of the blue. We wanted to have comparisons. And we used 4 other municipalities: Meaford, South Bruce Peninsula, Grey Highlands, and West Grey. We used population figures as a comparable, and you'll see that this is all kind of same ballpark in terms of council members, population. And then, of course, there are differences. There are differences between, on the one side, Meaford and South Bruce Peninsula that use a base salary, obviously slightly higher than what the other 3 municipalities are using, because they are separating salaries and per diems. And in line with the principles that we just discussed, we concluded that the current mechanism of a salary plus per diem was actually the best that would fit the current, that's the current model, and we recommend that we maintain that model rather than to shift to the system used by Meaford and South Bruce Peninsula of simply having a base salary model. Go to the next slide, Brittany. So pretty straightforward in terms of remuneration. We asked each of you in our interviews in terms of what you thought about the salary, given the fact that the criteria in terms of it shouldn't be an obstacle to actually become a council member or mayor or deputy mayor. And by and large, we felt that the feedback was one that people were generally satisfied with the remuneration. And therefore, we recommend that that the salary and per diem rates are adjusted by the same cost of living adjustment that is also awarded to non-union township staff each year for the period of 2022-2026. In addition, we recommend some changes, and Anne will talk about it briefly. But with regards to travel allowances, we recommend that in line with increased cost of living, that those travel allowances for meals and incidentals will be increased from $75 to $95. And we also thought that it would be appropriate to increase the mayor's allowance for conferences, seminars, and special events from $100 to $200 a day. And that's for 2 reasons. One is that apparently that line item is very carefully used. And at the same time, we also thought that if we looked at what this mostly consists of, it's really about renting of spaces for meetings or to have side meetings, basically. And if that includes, for example, a hotel room, we thought it was appropriate, also in line with increased expense, cost of living, to increase that number from 100 to 200. There were a number of other recommendations and considerations, and we'll talk about that now.
Thank you, Luc, and thank you, Brittany, for bringing up the slide. And I also want to say that I really appreciated being able to be part of this process. It was really interesting to have the opportunity to talk to so many of the councillors and hear a bit more about what the work actually entails. So thank you to all of you and to the staff that supported us in doing this work. So one of the things that we heard was that there were places where the policy and the definitions could use a bit more clarity. And so we reviewed them really closely and felt that, yes, there were some changes that we thought we could make around clarity, but we also felt that it was a pretty complicated document and it probably warranted an annual review with council of what the policy actually entails and how it would be implemented. So that's been included as a recommendation or a change to the policy for the council to take a look at. We made one change in the definition page. The policy was referring to committee members, and what we finally figured out was that what it was actually referencing was community committee members. So we've added that to the definition, that that community members be added as a definition within the list, and you will see that in the document attached. So also we decided to tweak the conference and seminar policy a bit. And part of the tweaking was including the term community member instead of committee member to make that clear. The other change that we are recommending there is that we had heard from some of the councillors that the purchase of resources or books was an important part of their learning, and there was wondering whether that could be included in the amount of dollars that were allocated to a council member or a community committee member for their annual council or conference and seminar budget. And that for councillors, that would be $300. For community committee members, it would be $500. But some of that money, should they choose, could go to the purchase of books. It was suggested that those books then become part of a Georgian Bluffs kind of library, so it could be accessible to all committee members or council members. The last recommendation to try to create some clarity was with regard to the attendance at special events. And we're recommending that members of council forward invitations for special events to the clerk for inclusion on the next council meeting. When council via resolution directs a member of council to attend a special event, they will be paid a per diem. And we're hoping that that's a policy change that will simplify the procedure and make it a little bit clearer, because that was certainly something that we were hearing fairly consistently, that there was some lack of clarity there. And that covers those changes. And back to Anne.
Thank you, Anne. Brittany, if you can pull up slide 8, financial impact. Unlike last review where we were dealing with the 1/3 tax-free allowance and had fixed at the time 2.2% an annual cost of living increase. This year we couldn't quantify what the changes are going to be from a dollar point of view. So we know that they will have a budget impact effective with the 2022 council term. And that will, of course, be caused by the annual adjustment for salary and per diem, the increase in the daily travel allowance and the mayor's discretionary allowance, allocated annual spending up to $500 for community members and $3,000 for members of council. We are unable, though, and we've consulted with the treasurer on this, unable to determine exactly what those costs are going to be, but we feel that it will be only a small impact on the township's overall budget during the 2022-2026 council term. Next slide, please. So the recommendation from the committee is that the Council of the Township of Georgian Bluffs receives the report prepared by the Council Remuneration Committee regarding the Council remuneration policy, and that a bylaw be passed to adopt the Council remuneration policy attached to this report as Appendix A, and to repeal bylaw 2018-0886. And with that, that's our presentation, and we would be most pleased to answer any questions that you may have of us.
Thank you very much, Anne and Luke. I will now turn it over to council if council have any questions. Deputy Mayor Carlton, I think I see your hand.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you to all members of the committee for volunteering your time to do this for us. So just one comment, the town of South Bruce Peninsula is marked down as being a 9-member council. It was 3 terms ago. It's been a 5-member council for the last 2. So we should possibly correct that just for future going forward. I also noted somewhere in there, it states that the starting date of this would be January 1st, 2023. Usually it's been effective with the new term of council, which coming this next term would be November 15th of 2022 would be when the new council starts. And
excuse me, Deputy Mayor, let the clerk, you want to respond to that?
Okay, I can respond when the deputy mayor is finished.
Okay, go ahead, Sue.
Okay, so the only other thing that I was kind of missing from previous reports, we've usually seen what the base rates would be when we started. and it usually flowed through because we were in the past, it had been 2.2 per year, so it could be calculated going forward exactly what that rate is. Right now, we're not seeing what those rates are. So to me, it's not transparent for somebody looking at running for election next year exactly what the salary would be starting. So I wouldn't mind seeing at least that base rates put in there, and realize when it's being the same COLA as staff, it's not possible to calculate that forward the way it was done in the past 2 times that I've been involved with. So I'm just wondering though if we couldn't have that base rate there just for transparency so people can see. Other than that, yes.
I'm going to let the Deputy Treasurer go ahead with a comment.
Okay.
So currently for non-union staff, our policy is the Ontario All Goods Cost of Living, or CPI, sorry, for the 12 months ending October of the year before. So because it ends in October, we can't necessarily comment on what that exact cost of living would be at this time.
Mr. Mayor, if I could ask a second question. So that meaning that there's no way of publishing those rates until you have that in place next year? Okay, that's fine. I think we should publish something maybe with that notation on it, because we're going to be looking at people putting their names in to run as of May, and it would be nice to have that information available for them. So even if it's there without the exact amount, just a notation as to when the exact amount would be known, if that were possible. And
I see head shaking. It will be Deputy Mayor, and they're good comments. Any other questions?
Mr. Mayor, if I may, just before you go to Councillor Coburn, I just wanted to note that the effective date of these changes is for the new term of council, being the 2022 through to 2026 term, following the inaugural council meeting being November 15th. So it will take effect for the new term.
Okay. Thank you, Madam Clerk. Councillor Coburn, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And I guess through you to the committee and or staff, a couple of questions. One in regards to OMERS. I thought I had seen that there was going to be a change to that, but upon second review, it looks as though it's going to remain the same in terms of eligibility criteria and age. So I just wanted to verify that. And the second question I have is regarding receipts. I find it unusual for public sector not to have to produce receipts for expenses. And I just wondered through you, Mr. Mayor, to the committee, is that typical of other municipalities in the area? Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Coburn. Which one of the committee members would like to respond?
I think I will, but my response will be that I don't know. And if that, I assume that the expense claims, when they're being brought forward, are being adjudicated by the policy of the township. So I think I would have to leave that question to be answered about whether there are receipts or not by the clerk.
Thank you, Anne. Madam Clerk, please go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Receipts are required upon submission of the expense sheet. If council would like clarity added to that policy, we can certainly add a line that specifies that requirement. And Councillor Coburn, forgive me, I have forgotten your first question. If you could please repeat it.
Sure, absolutely, Brittany. It was in regards to the eligibility criteria for OMERS. And just a remark in regards to your answer to the first question. I don't know that we've been following a policy that we are required to submit receipts. I know I started to submit them because I figured that was the most prudent and fairly typical, again, for public sector, and then was told that wasn't necessary, and I guess I do question that. Thank you.
So in regards to the OMERS, I believe, and the committee can correct me if I'm wrong, but prior in the 2018 version, I believe it read 65, and that has been changed to 70 per the OMERS guidelines. And would the committee care to comment on that?
I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
Thank you. We just used the data that was provided to us by staff, so we did not confirm that data.
Okay, Madam Clerk.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yes, so that has been amended to 70 per OMERS guidelines.
Okay, thank you. All good questions. Is there any other questions from council? Oh, go ahead, Deputy Mayor.
Just a comment about the receipts. I also used to send my receipts in when I was away at conference, and that was all I claimed. And then was told by the treasurer at the time that and I think this really changed during this term of council earlier on, that when we were away at conference, we were just to claim that set base amount at $75 a day, whether we were actually using it or not. It seemed like a rather strange thing, but that's what we were told.
Okay, go ahead, Madam.
May I comment, sir?
Yeah, okay, please go ahead.
Okay, the policy itself reads, or the draft committee report reads that a daily maximum travel allowance of $95 is established. Amounts more than the daily are subject to council approval and must be supported by receipts. So the deputy mayor has explained it as it is. It was contemplated by the policy that receipts were required only for amounts in excess of the daily limit.
Thank you very much, Anne. Madam Clerk, please go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And just a comment further to the presentation provided to the committee, and thank you again to our members for the effort that has gone into this. It has been months of meetings and months of effort on their part, so thank you on behalf of staff and council. One of the large themes that we pulled out of this process was the need for revamping of our orientation process to answer questions such as provision of receipts, etc. So staff have heard that feedback and are revamping that process for the next term to clearly establish the expectations when filing expense reports in regards to remuneration and etc. So we will be doing that for the next term. I just wanted to note that for council's information.
Thank you, Madam Clerk, and I'm glad we've finally put that in place. Is there any other questions from council members? Seeing none, again, thank you very much for doing the task. On behalf of council, we really appreciate it, and thank you for the raise. Anyway, thank you, everybody.
Thanks. Bye for now.
So I think I'll move on to the Madam Clerk.
You have a motion on the floor.
Oh, sorry, yeah. Does council want me to read the motion again, or the motion is clear? If it is, I'll ask for a show of hands. All in favor of the motion before us? The motion is carried. Could I please ask our members that are virtual to put your hand closer to your face, because I can't see your hands, unfortunately, where I am. Just if you have to vote, please. Okay, moving on for agenda. We are now down to our consent agenda. Is there any member of council who wish to pull anything from our consent agenda? Councillor Colburn?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just wondered if I might ask for a comment regarding 9.2.1, the BioGrid meeting.
Do you want to pull that? We'll pull that and have a comment. Okay, 9.2.1. Okay. Is there any other item that council members wish to pull? See none. So I'll read the recommendation. The Council of the Township of Georgian Bluffs adopt the consent agenda for information as circulated less 9.2.1. Someone to move put on the floor, please. Moved by Councilor Sullivan, second by Councilor Pringle. Is there any discussion on the motion before us? Seeing none, show of hands, all in favor? The motion is carried. So moving down, consideration of items pulled from the consent agenda. Councilor Coburn, you pulled 9.2.1, the Bar Good Joint Board Management. Do you have a question or please go ahead?
Yes. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And I guess through you two members of that joint board, the minutes reflect a plan or a study on decommissioning and or recommissioning of the biogrid. And I just wondered, is that study or that plan available? And if not, when will it be? Or when can we see a presentation to all of council regarding those? Thank you.
Okay, Madam Clerk.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The presentation provided by the consultants at that meeting forms part of that meeting agenda. We can certainly bring it forward at a future council meeting should council wish to view it as well.
Councilor Coburn, does that answer your question? Okay. Deputy Mayor Carlton.
Just a comment that those minutes actually are from June 28th. So we did just recently have another biodigester meeting that would be a little more updated than that one. But that decommissioning report would be of value, I think, to the rest of council as well.
Agree. Councilor Coburn, go ahead.
Yeah, thank you for that clarity. Madam Clerk, I'm perhaps looking in the wrong spot, but I don't see that as part of this particular minute package. So I wonder if that's coming along down the road, or if I'm just looking in the wrong spot. Please let me know.
Madam Clerk.
Being the minutes of the last bio meeting or the presentation? Oh, the minutes of the last bio meeting. So our procedure is that once the minutes are adopted by each respective committee or approved, they then form part of the consent agenda. So that's why you're now seeing the minutes from June 28th, because they were just approved by the committee.
Okay, Councilor Coburn, go ahead.
Sorry, Brittany, my mistake. No, I was referring to the plan. I don't see the plan that you indicated was part of that package 9.2.1. Am I misunderstanding you? I only see, I think, 5 pages of minutes.
Brittany, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. No, so what I meant was it forms part of the public meeting agenda for that specific meeting. So we can bring it forward on the next consent agenda for council's information.
Okay. Seeing none, and I believe Councilor Coburn, your questions were answered. Sure. Okay, I'll move forward with the agenda. Madam Clerk, do we need to vote on this item that was pulled from the consent agenda, or just we've had our discussion so we move forward?
We've had our discussion.
Okay. So we're now down to correspondence. We have 3 sets of correspondence. The first one is from Debbie Fortney requesting Kilsyth Hall rental fee reduction. And I have a motion here which I'll read, that the rental fee for use of Kilsyth Hall on December 12, 2021 as requested be waived. And is there a staff member who wishes to speak to this?
I would just ask for a mover and a seconder.
Oh, sorry. First meeting. Move by Councilor Coburn, second by Councilor Sullivan. Now we have it on the floor. Madam Clerk, are you going to speak to this?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I don't have too many comments. This was a written piece of correspondence submitted by the requestee, being Ms. Fortney. This is an annual request that council considers and has waived in the past. They were unable to host this event in 2020 due to the pandemic, however, are going to do so this year with respect to the gathering guidelines and masks and etc. So they are once again requesting that council waive the rental fee for use of this facility on December 12th.
Okay, thank you, Madam Clerk. Yeah, I believe we have done this before. Is there any comments or questions on this? Go ahead, Councillor Burford.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just curiosity, are we offering the same reduction in price for all the arenas, for all the senior groups?
I believe Councillor Burford is just coming through upon request, and this particular group have requested, so that's the way we deal with it.
Well, I'm thinking of the carpet bowlers. Let's just start out with them.
Madam Clerk, Kirby's fine. Am I correct in saying what I said, that it's upon request?
Yes, that's correct. So should the carpet bowlers request a fee waiver or a reduction, then we would bring that forward to council as the same with any other seniors group. So this is just essentially a one-off request of this group to have that fee waived.
Go ahead, Councillor Burford.
What is the rate?
Sir, I do not know. I don't know. Without putting you on the spot, Deputy Treasurer, you able to get it, or? Go ahead.
I apologize for that delay. My computer was being a little slow. So as they are looking for the Derby Community Center, if it is the floor, it is $550 a day. If they're looking for Pioneer Hall, it's $150 a day.
Thank you. Does that answer your question, Councillor Burford?
They're asking for it to be reduced instead of the $150 day charge. So reduce to what?
I think Councillor Burford, if I remember correctly in past, with the amount of things they do around the hall and so on, this group, we waive the complete fee for this particular item. That's the way I think it is. So I think that, Madam Clerk, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So the way that the motion reads is the entirety of the $150 is proposed to be waived. If this council would prefer to consider a reduction in that rate, to example, half of it, just throwing a number out there, then we may amend the motion to do so.
Councillor Burford?
I'm not trying to be the Grinch that stole Christmas, but if the rate is $150 and they're asking for the entire rate to be waived, why do we charge the carp bowlers? Why aren't seniors in Shallow Lake notified that you can have the hall for nothing? All you got to do is send a letter. I just want to make this a level playing field.
I believe Councillor Coburn, your hand was up first.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And I have to say, I do agree with Councillor Barfoot. It seems to me that when we deal with things like this as a one-off or first come, first serve, we're not really following any particular policy, and that does create an unlevel playing field, and we don't want to be seen as showing favoritism or treating some people differently than others. And I wonder, do we have a policy that guides this kind of thing other than just the flat rate? If we don't, I wonder if we do need something to help provide us with some criteria around allowing for reductions of rates in an instance such as this one.
Madam Clerk, you wish to respond?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So earlier this year, Council considered a reviewed version of the donation policy. That policy, Council wished to see some amendments to upon the presentation of the draft version. That policy remains in draft form. Considering the comments here this evening prior to bringing it back to adoption, I think it would be a good idea to add circumstances such as these to said policy. So then you would be correct, Councillor Coburn, we would have a properly defined policy as to how to respond to such requests. So we will have that completed for the 2022 budget discussions.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Deputy Mayor Carlton, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I think in this case, under normal circumstances, when they're getting together out there, I think it's once every 2 weeks or maybe once a week, they pay that daily rate. So it's just for this one special occasion that they're asking for a reduction or to do it by donation. So I think, I know there's not really a current policy on it, but which is why I think we land up at this point where they come forward with a special request. But I think for this group, they do pay the full rate year round. It's just this one time they ask for that reduction.
Thank you for your comments. Councillor Barfoot?
Good point, but I would like to, because it was my understanding that a few years ago, this group met there quite often. I don't know if it was monthly or how often, and they donated stuff to the arena. So I'd just like to make sure, is this just once or is this for all year?
I believe it's just for the one time according to their letter, Councillor Barfoot. And as the clerk has indicated, we will revise our policy so it does include it in a proper fashion like Councillor Coburn suggesting. So if Councillor Pringle, go ahead.
Yeah, I think you're correct on it. Was just a one-time deal, and I think it was something to do with the Christmas gathering, right? It's not they're not out to do this every week or whatever. There was something to do with a Christmas function they wanted to have with some other elderly people in the area.
Thank you, Grant. So there's no other. Councillor Barfoot, go ahead.
I would just like to point something out. I'm going to beat this to death because I just want to make sure all the other arenas, the users there are treated fairly as well. I just want to point out that here it says, we are a seniors card group that have it in the past and are asking again this year to have the rental of the Kilsyth Hall reduced or by no donation instead of the 150-day charge, period. Then they go into the Christmas party. So what they're asking for is not really clear in my mind.
Okay. Comments? Madam Clerk. Carol, please turn off your mic.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So just for clarity, the motion that's currently on the floor is only to waive the fee for December 12th, being the purposes for this specific special event.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Coburn, go ahead.
I wonder, just to move the conversation along, if I might amend the motion to say that we will offer them the hall for this one event by donation. I imagine they want to get going on their planning, and I don't think it's fair necessarily to ask them to wait on an answer while we develop some criteria for the policy. So I wonder if council would be agreeable to that for this time, and looking to approve a policy that covers these kinds of situations coming forward in the near future.
It's entirely up to council. Any comments from council on Councilor Colburn suggesting? Councilor Pringle?
I'm still kind of in favor of the donation or going with the non-charge for this time around, and then decide to change our policy to wherever we want to go moving forward. We've done it for them before, apparently, so I think we should carry on the same as before.
Thank you. Councilor Colburn?
But they're not asking for us to waive the fee. They're asking for us to reduce the fee or make it by donation. Unless I'm not seeing part of the request, I think that's what they're asking for, right? Not that we waive the fee entirely.
Madam Clerk?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So if council is providing use of the space by donation, we're essentially waiving the fee for use of that space. But if we like that wording better, we can certainly amend the motion to that effect, being that the use of Kilsyth Hall on December 12th, 2021, as requested, be provided by donation, therefore removing the word waiver of fee. And if I may, it may also be beneficial to add a second line, being that the amended version of the previously considered donation policy be presented prior to 2022 budget discussions.
Councilor Burford?
Even if we waive it, we have to keep in mind that we do have expenses. We have staff we have to pay, that have to go there, open it up. Probably, I don't know how it reads now, but stay there for the entire event, then clean up and close up. And I'm sure this group is good for cleanup. I'm not doubting that. But we have to remember there is a cost to the rest of the ratepayers being staff.
That's a good point, Councilor Burford. I wonder, either Steve or Madam Clerk, could you please explain to me exactly what you mean by waive the fee, but in lieu of a donation? What exactly do you mean by that?
So we essentially accomplish the same thing by both of those words. So we either donate the time to the group or we waive the fee for the group. In both circumstances, they do not pay the cost for rental of the space.
Okay, Councilor Colburn?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm not interpreting that language the same way as our clerk is. This request is to have the rental fee reduced or by donation. To me, I interpreted that to mean we won't charge them the $150 fee, but in lieu of that, we would ask them to make a donation to the municipality. So am I misunderstanding that? That was my interpretation, not that we're donating the hall space free.
That's what I want to clarify, Councilor Colburn. Exactly what do we mean by the donation part? Before I go to Deputy Mayor Carlton, Steve, did I see you wanting to make comment? No. Go ahead, Deputy Mayor.
Thank you. I read it the same way Councillor Colburn did, that they're asking either for a reduction or that they would make a donation to us. So by donation, I would take it they're going to pass around a hat, so to speak, and whatever they collect comes to the township. We might actually come out ahead with more than the $150, so maybe we should go that route.
Okay. Okay, we've had a great discussion on this motion. Madam Clerk, have you devised a new motion to that effect yet? I'm just a little bit lost. The motion we have on the floor is not quite correct. We need to amend it. Councillor Colburn, can you suggest how you want the motion amended?
I would just say that the rental fee, that we will waive the rental fee and that we would accept a donation from this group instead. Something along those lines.
Madam Clerk, does that help you out? We're just trying to describe the motion.
So if I have summarized council's wishes appropriately, the motion will be amended to read that the rental fee for use of the Kilsyth Hall on December 12th, 2021 be waived and that a donation be made to the township in lieu of said fee.
I see heads nodding. I believe that's the way it is. Does the mover and seconder agree to that? Deputy Mayor Carlton?
I wonder if we should be specific, a cash donation. This group has donated time or things for the hall in the past. So maybe we want to be a little clearer on exactly what kind of donation we're accepting.
Madam Clerk?
The motion has been so amended.
Okay. And the mover and seconder is okay with amendment to the motion? Yeah, okay. So there's no other discussion on this motion before us. I'll ask for a show of hands. All in favor of the amended motion? The motion is carried. Thank you. Now moving on, our next correspondence was a letter from the Township of Chatsworth regarding support for Great Gables long-term care 128-bed redevelopment. It's mainly for information, I believe. It is an upper tier responsibility, and we'd have to go into one mega conversation about what is going on with long-term care, and I don't know what's council's wish. Okay. Sometime I would like to be put on the agenda where, as the chair of the long-term care task force, I'd like to take an opportunity to get on the agenda at a future council meeting to explain to all of council where we're at on the county level to do with the new home and so on and so forth. There is quite a bit of information. I'm not prepared to do it tonight, but I would like to be put on the agenda so I could bring everybody up to speed where we're at. Madam Clerk, if you wouldn't mind doing that. Deputy Mayor Carlton.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. My comment on that would be that I think we would be a little out of line forwarding that on because the county has decided to put a hold on further redevelopment at Great Gables at this time. So I don't think it's a lower tier right where we should get in on telling the county how we think they should act on this when there's financial reasons for having put that on hold temporarily. So I think we need to just take this one as information and not go any further with it.
I agree, Deputy Mayor. It just, it is and will be quite a discussion on the county level, but I would like to bring our council, George Buffs, up to speed of what's going on there, but maybe not tonight because I'm not really prepared to have the proper figures here for you, but I have asked Madam Clerk to put it on a future meeting so I could do that, and she will do that for us. So at a future council meeting, I gladly update council where the county's at with their new long-term care facility. And it is quite a discussion. Councilor Burfitt?
I agree. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I agree with you. The only thing at the present time as a councillor is what I read in the paper. And I think it would be nice if we could sit down and you and the deputy could explain to us what's going on at the county. I mean, we are part of the county, so
Yep.
Let's share that information.
I would gladly do that. And as I said, Councilor Barfoot, I am chair of the committee in the county level that looks after the task force for the redevelopment. So I would gladly like to bring council up to date, all what's happening, where we're at with that. But I prefer at a future council meeting when I'm prepared for it. Councilor Colburn, did I see your hand?
Yeah, just quickly, thank you, Mr. Mayor. We'll look forward to hearing more information on this. I personally feel like there's nothing wrong with supporting a resolution like this. We're not telling the county how to do their business, but at the same time, this is a facility that could very well impact the families of some of our residents down maybe more in the southern areas of Georgian Bluffs. And I see no problem in speaking out on behalf of ratepayers if we feel like this is something that we possibly could support. So I do look forward to that information, and I'm certainly not afraid to support a resolution that could benefit the residents of Georgian Bluffs.
I agree with what you're saying, Councilor Colburn, but might I suggest that we either pull this motion and bring it back when I give the update to council, and then base it on the information I'm going to give you, not to slam the media in any way. Sometimes the information in the media is maybe not quite correct. And I'd like to give you the Cole's note of the correct scenario, but Madam Clerk, maybe we could bring this back at a future meeting.
So, Mr. Mayor, if I would, just to formalize, if we could please have a motion to defer pending your update.
Okay, moved by Councilor Sullivan, second by Councilor Colburn, that we defer this for later. And there's no discussion on the motion before us. All in favor of the motion, show of hands. It's carried. Okay, we're down to our last piece of correspondence, the QP request for support, Omer's performance review. Wow, what a report. I don't know how to comment on it. It's quite amazing, that report, how detailed, and obviously what I was reading, there definitely needs to be something done or something looked into it. But I don't know, as a lower tier, how do we do that, Madam Clerk?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Should council decide to support QP in their request, we may do so through a notice of motion.
Would any council member want to bring a notice of motion back at our next meeting to support this report and so on? I believe Deputy Mayor Carlton, you were going to bring a notice of motion forward?
Yes, I will, because I think this impacts all of us, so I think we should respond to it.
I agree. Seeing no other correspondence, so I'll move on to the agenda. We're down to committee reports. That the minutes of the Committee of the Whole meeting held on November 17th, 2021 be adopted, including recommendation COW 2021-112 to COW 2021-114. Someone to move to put on the floor, please. Moved by Councilor Colburn, second by Councilor Pringle. Is there any discussion on the motion before us? See none. Show of hands, all in favor? It's carried. We're down to Climate Action Committee notice of motion. And what I'd like to do, it's a very long motion, so please bear with me and I will read it. And Madam Clerk will do the next one. The recommendation is, whereas the Township of Georgian Bluffs Climate Action Committee discussed tree protection measures at their meeting on November 5th, 2021, and whereas the Climate Action Committee supports the following motion at their meeting on November 19th, 2021. Whereas the Climate Action Committee has been established to assist Council in developing recommendations, actions, policy directions, and statistic priorities related to the Climate Action Plan and climate crisis, and whereas continued sustainability of Ontario's forest resources is imperative to maneuvering said crisis in the planning process, and whereas Section 1352 of the Municipal Act, SO 2001, C25 as amended, permit the enactment of a bylaw by municipal councils to provide or regulate the destruction or injury of trees in woodlands, and whereas Section 1357 of the Municipal Act, SO 2001-25, as amended, permits councils to require that a permit be obtained to harvest injured or destroyed trees of woodlands specified in the bylaw and impose conditions on a permit, including conditions related to the matter in which destruction occurs and the qualifications of persons authorized to harvest injured or destroyed trees. And whereas trees within the township are valued for the economic, social, and environmental benefit they provide, such as sequestration of carbon, local modernization, improved air quality, increased aesthetic and property values, shade, contributes to physical and can't see the word.
Psychological.
Psychological well-being, maintain and enhanced of water quality, prevention of soil erosion and water running, and wildlife habitat. Now therefore, the Township of Georgian Bluffs Climate Action Committee hereby recommends that the Council of the Township of Georgian Bluffs enact a bylaw to regulate the destruction or injury of trees within the township on both public and private lands, and that the council staff to prepare a report and draft bylaw for review and comment of the committee prior to presentation to council. Now therefore, Council of the Township of Georgian Bluffs hereby supports the included recommendations of the Climate Action Committee, and that staff are hereby directed to prepare a report and draft bylaw for review and comment of the committee prior to presentation to council. Someone to move to put on the floor, please. Moved by Deputy Mayor Carlton, second by Councillor Colburn. Councillor Colburn, chair of that committee, do you wish to comment?
Yeah, probably not a whole lot. It's pretty detailed and self-explanatory. We have certainly seen in our municipality where the destruction of trees has been a problem. Particularly on public lands, and this will help regulate that as well. I think it's a solid recommendation. We're seeing neighboring municipalities bringing forward similar policies, and I think it has the potential to benefit our municipality in a lot of different ways, including climate change action. So yeah, I'm hoping everyone will support this.
Thank you, Councillor Colburn. Councillor Sullivan, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you to Councillor Colburn. I was kind of hoping, or I guess, sorry, I should say, or the Deputy Mayor as well. So is this? It's just in woodlands areas, or like tree? Is that the main part of this? I do have a few questions if you want to answer them one by one, or do you want me to go through? But yeah, the tree. Sorry. Okay, she's going to answer.
Go ahead, Councillor Colburn. Or
I was just going to say, through you, Mr. Mayor, to Councillor Sutherland, the Deputy Mayor and I will give it a go, but I think what the motion here is that we're directing staff to prepare a report and bring it back. So I think we're looking to staff to provide us with some rationale and maybe draw on the experience of some neighboring municipalities' policies as well. So that's what the motion here is tonight, is to direct staff to prepare a report to bring back to council.
Deputy Mayor Carlton.
Thank you. And I agree with what Councillor Colburn is saying. The other bylaws that are shown there that have been drawn up by other municipalities are examples of how a bylaw could be drawn up. Probably the biggest concern in our municipality will be people who are cutting trees down for their own use. And that is very clearly outlined in all of those other bylaws, that if you are cutting trees down for your own use, for your own heating, then you're exempted from the considerations. If you were clear cutting might be a different thing, but if you're cutting those trees for your own use, I think is going to be the biggest thing that people are asking for in this municipality. So those would be exempted.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. I wonder, Councillor Sullivan, would you be able to wait with your questions until staff brings back that report? Okay. Thank you. Councillor Barfa, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I think we have to be really cautious on this because I'm thinking I live in an area that's all wooded. I have 90 some odd acres. I have a man that comes in every year and he cuts diseased trees or cuts trees that have fallen over that are going to die. I don't use it for my own. I don't sell the wood. I trade the labor for the trees. Up the road from me, I see Conservation Authority land, and I don't ever remember seeing anybody in there. And anybody that has woodlots know you have to manage your woodlots to keep them productive. And I think we have a lot of land in this municipality that is just woodlots. So we really have to be careful. I take offense that I pay taxes and yet I can't cut a tree down because it's leaning towards my house. Come on. You really have to look twice at whatever policy you're putting in place. I think you could be opening a real can of worms here. So just be cautious.
Thank you, Councillor Barfoot, and I really look forward to staff bringing this report back. And I'm not sure who had their hand up first, so I guess I'll go to the chair of the committee first. Councillor Colburn.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and through you to Councillor Barfoot and the rest of council. By all means is the intent of this policy not to prevent people from managing their woodlots in a responsible way at all. And in fact, Grey Sauble Conservation Authority does that very thing in cycles on all of their managed properties as well, cutting out diseased trees and making way for new growth. And so that's absolutely, preventing that kind of maintenance is absolutely not the intent of this particular policy.
Thank you, Councillor Colburn. Go ahead, Councillor Barfoot.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd just like to point one thing out. We'll take, for example, the landfill site. That was logged how many years ago? 15 years ago. To manage any woodlot, and I'm not a McNabb, so I'm no expert at this, but I am a landowner that has 90 some odd acres of trees. That landfill site has not been logged since. To make good growth, you've got to manage. So why aren't we logging the landfill site? It's income. I can even give you the name of the logger that took it out last time. But it's food for thought. Be careful what you wish for. You get a bill like this that goes through and somebody sees a logger in their cotton, it's going to be, we're going to be on the hook. Anyways.
Thank you, Councillor Barfoot, and I really look forward to the staff report coming back, covering all these items, and I see their head shaking, so I'm quite sure they're prepared to do it. If there's no other discussion on the motion before us, I'll ask for a show of hands. All in favor of the motion? It's carried. And thank you, ladies, for putting your hand out in front of you so I can see. Oh, sorry. Anyone opposed? The motion was carried. Sorry. Madam Clerk, would you please read the next short motion?
Absolutely. So through your chair, Mr. Mayor, the motion will read as follows. Whereas the Township of Georgian Bluffs Climate Action Committee considered Resolution 2021-657 as passed by the Council of Municipality of Grey Highlands at their meeting on November 5th, 2021. And whereas the Climate Action Committee supported the following motion at their meeting on November 19th, 2021. Whereas the Government of Ontario is planning to increase electricity generation and greenhouse gas pollution from Ontario's gas-fired power plants by more than 300% by 2030 and by 500% or more by 2040, thus reversing approximately 40% of the greenhouse gas pollution reductions achieved by phasing out our coal-fired power plants. And whereas greenhouse gas pollution is causing temperature in Canada to rise at more than double the rate of the rest of the world, causing impacts to the operations and citizens of Georgian Bluffs. And whereas Georgian Bluffs is taking measures to mitigate and adapt to the climate impacts caused by increasing greenhouse gas pollution. And whereas the planned increase in electricity-related greenhouse gas pollution will reduce the effectiveness of our greenhouse gas reduction efforts. And whereas there are feasible, cost-effective alternatives to increasing gas-fired electricity generation without increasing greenhouse gas pollution at costs well below the current price for Ontario's nuclear energy, 9.6 cents per kilowatt. I think that's what that says, including energy efficiency investments, low-cost distributed renewable energy, providing employment in Ontario communities and restoring our leadership in this industry, the purchase of low-cost power offered by the province of Quebec from its existing hydroelectric generating station, and using Quebec's system of reservoirs like a giant battery to back up made in Ontario renewable power, eliminating the need to use gas-fired power plants for this purpose. And whereas the Georgian Bluffs Climate Action Committee supports the Council of Municipality of Grey Highlands in their request that the Government of Ontario place an interim cap of 2.5 megatons per year on the greenhouse gas pollution from Ontario's gas-fired power plants and develop and implement a plan to phase out all gas-fired electricity generation by 2030 to help Ontario and Georgian Bluffs meet our climate targets. Now, therefore, the Georgian Bluffs Climate Action Committee recommends that the Council of the Township of Georgian Bluffs ratify this resolution and further support the municipality of Grey Highlands, and that this resolution be sent to the municipality of Grey Highlands, all Ontario municipalities, the Premier of Ontario, the Minister of Energy, Northern Development and Mines, the Minister of the Environment, Conservation and Parks, Federation of Canadian Municipalities, FCM, MPP Bill Walker, the Honorable Lisa Thompson, Minister of Agriculture, and the Association of Municipalities of Ontario, AMO. Now, therefore, Council of the Township of Georgian Bluffs hereby supports the included recommendation of the Climate Action Committee, and that staff are hereby directed to indicate said support to the municipality of Grey Highlands and circulate this resolution as included above.
Thank you, Madam Clerk, for reading that. And I must say that the Climate Action Committee has got the longest motion on books to date. Could I have someone to move to put it on the floor, please? Moved by Councillor Pringle, second by Councillor Coburn. Councillor Coburn, you're the chair of the committee. Any comments?
I really don't. It's again, it's a very detailed resolution, and the committee is just asking for council to support resolution of this, rather to ratify this resolution and join the municipality of Grey Highlands in encouraging the government of Ontario to ensure that there are targets set for phasing out gas-powered electricity.
Thank you, Councillor Coburn. Does council want the clerk to read the motion again? Sorry. A show of hands, all in favor of the motion. The motion is carried. Opposed? The motion is carried. Okay, moving on to the agenda, we're down to staff reports. Our first one is planning, and the recommendation is that's correspondence from Design Plan Service regarding the request for an extension of draft approval of floor plan of subdivision 42T 2004-2 for Georgian Villas Incorporated, Cobble Beach, be received, and the council support the request for a 3-year extension of draft approval for plan of subdivision 42T 2004-2 for Georgian Villa Incorporated, and the staff be directed to forward the motion in support of the request to the County of Grey. Someone to move to put on the floor, please. Moved by Councillor Sullivan, second by Councillor Coburn. Madam Senior Planner, are you there? Jen?
Yes, I am. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Go ahead.
So this report's fairly straightforward. Design Plan Services has applied for a 3-year extension of draft approval for the subdivision development that is Cobble Beach. As we know, Cobble Beach is our largest plan of subdivision, and the development is not finished. Council has seen subdivision agreements come forward for Algonquin Heights. Those lots have been created. They're not part of this this draft plan approval. But in order to keep the subdivision development effectively alive, they've applied to extend the draft plan approval for another 3 years. So staff don't have any concerns with the request. Development is proceeding as we expect it to. And there are a number of development agreements that are in place for this property. So the recommendation is that council support the request.
Thank you, Jen.
Thank you.
Any comments from council? Seeing none, a show of hands, all in favor of the motion before us? The motion is carried. Our next recommendation is that the report PL 2021-40 be received and that council support option 1 for the Committee of Adjustments structure model to commence with the 2022-2026 council term, and that bylaw 19/2011 being a bylaw to establish a Committee of Adjustments and committee procedures be updated to reflect the change to the committee structure and to address any administrative changes as required to bring the bylaw up to date, and that the amendment model take effect following the new term of council in 2022. Someone to move to put on the floor, please. Moved by Deputy Mayor Carlson, second by Councilor Pringle. The Madam Planner, Chloe, please go ahead.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor, and good evening. So in October of this year, Council directed staff to prepare a report to review options for restructuring the model of Committee of Adjustment that's currently being used in the township. So in response, staff have researched potential options for how the Committee of Adjustment could be structured moving forward into the new council term. So just a bit of background on this. The Committee of Adjustment is a quasi-judicial body, which means that it has powers similar to that of a court of law and is responsible for objectively making decisions and interpreting relevant legislation and policies. So that would include the Planning Act, the Provincial Policy Statement, provincial plans such as the Niagara Escarpment Plan, official plans for Grey County and Georgian Bluffs, as well as the zoning bylaw. Committee has authority to make decisions on consents, minor variances, expansions, or changes to legal non-conforming uses, and decisions on uses defined in a zoning bylaw in general terms. Committee of Adjustment is separate from council, and only council can make decisions on zoning bylaw amendments. So the reason for engaging in this review of the model is based on the idea that Committee of Adjustment is intended to remain as arm's length from council as much as possible to ensure objectivity in decision making and to avoid any potential perception of decisions being influenced by politics. So as a quasi-judicial body, committee does have the responsibility to act fairly and make decisions free from bias. Failure to do so may leave decisions vulnerable to invalidation or appeal. So the focus of the research detailed in the report was to look at how the member municipalities of Grey County structure their committees of adjustment. So what was found that there were 3 structures currently in use by the different municipalities. So the first is the council-only model, which is what Georgian Bluffs currently is using. There's also the citizen-only model, as well as a hybrid model consisting of both council members and citizen members. So there's no one prevailing model that's being used in our surrounding municipalities. However, 5 out of the 9 municipalities are using a model that incorporates citizen members to some degree. So staff's recommendation is for a hybrid model to be introduced at the beginning of the new council term. So a couple of the key reasons why this model is being recommended is that this model would allow the introduction of non-political citizen members while also recognizing that councillors have extensive local knowledge and context beneficial to decision making, and councillors are also familiar with the procedures of the committee. So that would facilitate meetings to go smoothly. Also, in the event that limited or no public interest is expressed, then we are still able to utilize councillors as committee members. And we also recognize that councillors are very busy and have tight schedules. So this represents an opportunity to reduce that workload of some councillors where their presence on this committee isn't a necessity. So it's not expected that there would be any financial impact resulting from amending the structure. Council members and citizen members would require training every year. So the expenses would remain the same in that respect. And staff are just also recommending a full update to the committee procedure bylaw just to bring it up to date because the last update was 2011 and we have some administrative changes relating to policy on virtual meetings and just things to bring it up to date. So this concludes my presentation and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you very much, Chloe. Good job. Does council have any questions? I do not see any. Councillor Colburn?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Not a question, but a comment. My preference would be to go with an all citizens committee of adjustment. I don't see the need for council members to be on there. And if part of the rationale for having a citizens based committee is political influence, I think it's very, very hard to introduce council members that don't have some kind of political sway or pull with many possible citizen committee members. So that would have been my preference, although I do see this as at least a shift in the right direction, and so I will support this motion.
Thank you, Councillor Colburn. If there's no other, Councillor Pringle, go ahead.
Yeah, sorry, maybe I just missed this. Good presentation there, Chloe, too. When we go with the citizens to be elected or selected for this committee, is it a 4-year term then? Is it run on a 4-year term or is it yearly or by, what's the scenario there?
Madam Clerk?
Thank you. It would be my intention to appoint essentially for a 4-year term. However, per the Planning Act, Committee of Adjustment members do have to be appointed on an annual basis. That's simply a formality to be completed by bylaw, but it would be my preference that the committee members that serve on this committee serve for the entire duration of the council term with that annual appointment to take place as a formality.
Okay, thank you, Madam Clerk. Councillor Burford?
Just out of curiosity, our last CAO, Mr. Menzies, had talked about having guidelines and bylaws concerning nepotism, buddyism, whateverism. Where do we stand? Because we're getting to the point now, what happens if we see that the committee is putting something through that in our opinion, could be problems down the road?
Madam Clerk, you wish to respond?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. So the council boards and committees of the township are held to the same code of conduct that this council is held to. Therefore, placing a conflict or approving a decision that is not at the best interest of the township would actively act against that code of conduct. You're correct in that while our former CEO was here, we did enact staff and hiring policies that speak to nepotism, et cetera, on the staffing level. However, this committee would be held to the same standard that this council is through its code of conduct. And any breach of that would be reportable to the Integrity Commissioner.
Thank you. Follow up, Councillor Burford?
Could you send out a copy of that, please, Madam Clerk? That bylaw? Thank you.
Okay. Seeing no other discussion on the motion before us. Oh, Madam Planner, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just wanted to add in as well that decisions made by the committee also have to have regard for all of the applicable planning legislations. So provincial policy statement, the county official plan, the Township of Georgian Bluffs official plan, as well as the zoning bylaw. So the committee would be required to make decisions in accordance with the legislation that's in effect.
Thank you, Jen. Madam Planner, oh, there. If there's no other discussion on the motion before us, I'll ask for a show of hands. All in favor of the motion before us? The motion is carried. Moving along, we're down to our next recommendation. Positive comments have been received from the county regarding the required road widening width to be dictated. Application Z 1121 is consistent with the provincial policy statement 2020 and the County of Gray official plan, recolor gray, and the intent of the Township of Georgian Bluffs zoning bylaw 2020. It is recommended that application Z 1121 for Sutherland Construction, a Walker company, be approved. Someone to move to put on the floor, please. Moved by Councilor Pringle, second by Councilor Sutherland. Madam Senior Planner, go ahead. Jen? You're muted.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So this report is essentially just a follow-up to let council know that the unresolved issue pertaining to the required road widening width along Gray Road 1 has been resolved. So just as a quick refresher, on October 20th of this year, there was a public meeting to consider application Z1121, and that application proposed to rezone the Sarawak Quarry property to have a RU, so a rural special zone, and what that would allow would be to permit the existing structures to be converted to be used for office use and meeting rooms for the quarry, as well as equipment repair related to that quarry operation. The applicant did engage with the County of Gray. They have come to an agreed upon width. It would be a road widening measured 50 feet from the present center line of Gray Road 1. The applicant is in the process of having that surveyed and transferred legally to the county. Additionally, we did receive comments from the Saginaw Ojibwe Nation on November 23rd, 2021. So those comments were received after the public meeting. However, they do note that the application is simply regarding the use of existing buildings at the Sarawak Quarry and not regarding a change or expansion to the quarry itself. If that's the case, there are no further comments from the Environment Office on this. Just in closing, no additional comments were received on this application, and the recommendation is to approve the zoning amendment. Thank you.
Thank you, Jen. Any comments from council? See none. A show of hands, all in favor? Opposed? The motion is carried. We're down to operations now. The recommendation is that the council receive report OPS 2021-45 right-of-way occupancy permit, and the staff are hereby directed to prepare a bylaw to enact policy OPS 2103 right-of-way occupancy permit for presentation at the November 15th, 2021 meeting of the council. Someone to move to put on the floor, please. Moved by Councilor Sullivan, second by Councilor Pringle. Director of Operations, Mr. Dolmer, you want to speak to this, please?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to council this evening. We just wanted to bring forward this report on the right-of-way occupancy permit. This permit will be taking over the spot for 4 other permits that are within our current township that we don't really use to their full capabilities. This will be replacing the street occupancy permit right now, which is what we use for special events or anything that uses the roadway within the township. The road borehole agreement that we are supposed to be doing for if there's doing borehole testing and stuff like that. Road cut and cross agreements where utilities come into the right of way and do cuts across the road right of way when they're putting in trenching for culverts, water mains, sanitary sewer connection hookups. And then also the other one that we'll be doing as well is the logging access agreement as well. We'll be replacing that with this permit. We were trying to condense what we've got going out there for permits, making it a one-shop stop kind of approach. The other thing too with this roadway occupation permit, this will actually apply to also the shore road allowance too. So if there's any tree cutting work being done or any proposed utilities being done on those occupants within those occupancies, we'll be able to actually have set securities on them and also proper fee structure for recouping the cost for site visits, travel time out there, the employees' times to review and stuff like that. So that's why we're looking to bring forward this new roadway occupation permit.
Thank you, Steve. Any comments or questions from council? Councilor Colburn?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and through you to our Director of Operations. Is there a plan to communicate this new permit process to some of our stakeholders, including utilities companies? I'm just wondering how they're going to be made aware.
Thank you, Councilor Colburn. Steve, go ahead.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to Councilor Colburn. Great question. We will be hosting a PUCC meeting with all the utilities and all the major stakeholders within the township of Georgian Bluffs in January. Once we get the fees and bylaw kind of passed, we will be sitting down with everybody to go through and saying, here's what our policy states. These are the rules and regulations that we must follow if you're doing work within our town right away. Components, also the shore road allowance as well, so that we know that everybody is listening to the same rules. The other thing too is when we do meet with these utilities commission boards as well, we'll be also saying that we'll want to review all drawings coming to us as well, so before we approve any works to be done within the right of way.
Thank you for that. That's a good, I'm glad to hear that. Any other comments from council? See none, a show of hands, all in favor of the motion before us? Opposed? It is carried. Moving on, our next item for operations is, I'll read the recommendation. The report OPS 2021-56 speed limit review, various roads be received, and that the speed limit on concession 17 from Zion Church Road to Lindenwood Road be reduced to 60 kilometers an hour from the existing 80 kilometers an hour, and that the speed limit on Derby Keppel Town Line from Highway 6 to the dead end be reduced to 60 kilometers per hour from the existing 80 kilometers per hour, and that the speed limit on Havelock Street from Old Mill Road to Greywood Road 1 be reduced to 40 kilometers an hour from the existing 50 kilometers per hour, and that the speed limit on Indra Avenue from Ewash Drive to McIntosh Drive be reduced to 40 kilometers per hour from the existing 50 kilometers per hour, and that the speed limit on Ishwar Drive from Greyville 1 to Indra Avenue be reduced to 40 kilometers from the existing 50 kilometers per hour, and that the speed limit on Lindenwood Road from concession 17 to Grey Road 17 be reduced to 60 kilometers from the existing 80 kilometers per hour, and that the speed limit on McIntosh Drive from Presqu'île Road to the dead end be reduced to 40 kilometers per hour from the existing 50 kilometers per hour. That the speed limit on Old Mill Road from Havelock Street to Grey Road 1 be reduced to 40 kilometers per hour from the existing 50 kilometers per hour, and that the speed limit on Presqu'île Road from McIntosh Drive to Grey Road 1 be reduced to 40 kilometers per hour from the existing 50 kilometers per hour, and that the speed limit on Side Road 9 from concession 11 to Grey Road 3 be reduced to 60 kilometers per hour from the existing 80 kilometers per hour, and that a bylaw to amend the speed limits be presented at the December 15th, 2021 council meeting. Someone to move, put it on the floor, please. Moved by Councillor Barfoot, second by Councillor Sutherland. Director of Operations, Mr. Dolmar, go ahead.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to council this evening. So we brought forward this report. We did, since May of 2021 this year, we've received Several phone calls, emails, presentations to council and committees, signed petitions from residents from various roads within the township, looking for us to review the roads and see what the appropriate speed limit is to be posted on these roads. In an absence of a local speed limit adjustment policy, the township does not currently have one. Operations staff rely on the Transportation Association of Canada's TAC, referred to as the Canadian Guidelines for Establishing Posted Speed Limits, December 2009, and Speed Management Guide from February 2016, which provides engineers and traffic practitioners with the objective assessment evaluation tools to assess appropriate posted speed limits based on certain criteria. So that looks at there's roughly about 12 different criteria that we look at. We look at how many stop signs, intersections, how many houses are coming onto the right of way, what is your local designation of the road, is it urban, is it rural, is it divided, is there grade separations. There's a lot of geometry and horizontal look at it. The other thing too is the township did purchase the actual tool through TAC, which is a user input system. It was attached to the report there to kind of give you an idea of what's going through all the tasks we did. We did also do a municipal comparison review as well by looking at some other municipalities and what they would do for speed reductions. The other thing too is, back in 2017, a new bill was passed through where it allowed the municipality to pass through bylaw to go below 50 kilometers an hour as the Highway Traffic Act was changed. So after our comparison and reviewing all these documents, we were able to bring forward a report to say we need to reduce speed limits. The other thing too is this is just for this year. Next year, we will be coming back to council with a full comprehensive review of all the roads within the township, just so everybody is aware that we'll be looking at, but these were just where everybody was kind of petitioning, phone calling, emailing staff to get these reviewed as soon as possible.
Thank you, Steve. Councilor Sutherland, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you to the Director of Operations. Excellent report. The only one that I want to clarify, I know all these roads. I travel these roads. A lot of these, like Ishwar, McIntosh Drive, these are highly populated, and they're short roads, and then there's a quick turn, right? So it's great. The speed limit on Presqu'île Road from McIntosh Drive to Grey Road 1. Will that be the northern portion of that road? Because that road goes both ways back to Grey Road 1, right? So,
Steve, go ahead.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to Councillor Sutherland. So that would be from McIntosh on Presqu'île down the hill all the way to Grey Road 1 there. We left the portion from McIntosh to heading south towards Grey Road 1. That's going to stay at the 60 kilometers that is currently posted at.
Thank you. Steve, 2 questions for me, if you don't mind. Oh, go ahead. I just wanted to, once this bylaw is passed, I assume you'll send it to the OPP?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to Mr. Mayor. Yes, any reductions in any speed limits within the township will have to be presented to OPP so they know which the new bylaws are, so they can enforce them accordingly.
Okay, thank you. And the last question I have is down in that Setacabee Park area, just as Councilor Sutherland has indicated, there's turns and it's a great thing to see the speed limit reduced. Are you going to do any future traffic calming in those areas? Steve?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to Mr. Mayor, the traffic calming policy will be coming forward at the committee of the whole meeting next week in regards to what kind of processes that we'll be looking at. So I was trying to get the traffic calming to come up with this report at the same time, but timeline's kind of restricting me on some of my reports. So that will be coming forward, but yes, we'll be looking at doing traffic calming in the Setacabee area as well.
Thank you. Councilor Barfa, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through to our Director of Operations. And I don't know, what about Island View Drive?
It's a county road.
It's a county road, but who sets the speed limit? Because we have had complaints from residents in the past. So do you take care of that? Take it to the county?
Go ahead, Steve.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to Councillor Barfoot. When it comes to Island Lake Road there, Grey Road 1, that would be a request that would have to go to the county for them to review. And they do review on that road quite a bit for speed limits and stuff like that. So they do bring forward a report that would be adopted at their level.
I find it interesting that the one that we've had complaints about recently that involves a village and involves safety of children and elderly residents trying to get across the highway. And I know you're going to say, well, that's Department of Transport because it's a highway. Well, there are residents. Why aren't we putting more traffic calming things in place?
I think Councillor Barfoot, I think the Director of Operation indicated he's reviewing all roads in the municipality, and that would probably be an area. Steve, go ahead.
That's fine, Mr. Mayor, sir.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to Councillor Barfoot. Just for clarification, we're talking about Shell Lake urban area. Just wanted to make sure. So I am currently working with the MTO on traffic calming for that area and also looking at reductions and stuff as well. So we are communicating with them constantly and then trying to come up with proper solutions. Once we get the recommendations from what MTO is doing there, then we'll be bringing it to council just for as an FYI.
Okay, Councillor Barfoot, you got a follow-up question? No?
You know, I hate bringing stuff back and back and back, but everything takes so long. And it's frustrating to us, but it's really frustrating to the residents. Like when it come out about putting new sidewalks in Shallow Lake, guy says to me, well, it's about time. I've only tripped so many times on, and I think he was saying on Main Street. So I guess they're pretty bad shape. So it's nice to see those done. The people are happy. But that'll be a springtime.
Go ahead, Steve.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to Councillor Barfoot, that is correct. With the winter weather coming here, we won't be able to pour concrete, or MTO can't pour concrete to fix repairs on sidewalks. So it'll be a springtime project. Through you, Mr. Mayor, to Councillor Barfoot, we will make sure that this gets done this year, 2022.
Yes. Councillor Colburn, I see your hand up.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and through you to our Director of Operations. You made reference to a policy, a municipal policy, rather than sort of addressing these concerns in a piecemeal fashion using the Canadian guidelines. I wonder, and I thought we had landed previously on developing such a policy. I'm just wondering, Mr. Dahlmeyer, if that's still of value, if that's still on the radar, or if that's still the plan. And if so, would that allow staff then to go ahead and use those criteria according to a policy that we approve as council, so that you could go ahead and make those recommendations or make those decisions when these kinds of concerns and complaints come forward from the residents?
Go ahead, Director of Operations.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to Councillor Coburn, we are still in process of creating that policy. It is going to be coming to you guys in Q1 of next year. It's just we've had so many policies that we've been updating this year.
Okay, so it's a work in progress. Is there any other questions on Councillor Pringle? Go ahead.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just a quick question on the speed limit reduction on Side Road 9 from concession 11 to Grey Road 3. From 60 to 80. I'm gathering you must have had complaints about the speed limit. That's a straight piece of road.
Go ahead, Steve.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to Councillor Pringle, we've had quite a few complaints along that section of road. A lot of the residents are noticing that people are going straight instead of continuing on to Grey Road 3. So they are going at the unposted speed limit of 80 kilometers as it is currently not posted.
Thank you. That's what I expected the answer would be, because the worst piece of road would be from concession 11 to the Grey Bruce line. That's got the 2 hairpin turns in it, right? So that's was my only. I figured somebody's been complaining about the speed limit.
Okay. Is there any other discussion on the motion before us? See none. Madam Clerk, I'm going to request a recorded vote.
Okay, when I call your name, please indicate your vote. Councillor Kathy Moore Coburn.
4.
Councillor Paul Sutherland.
For.
Councillor Barfoot,
Or
Councillor Pringle,
For.
Deputy Mayor Sue Carlton,
Or,
and Mayor Dwight Burley.
Before.
Thank you, and that carries.
Sorry, did you get Councillor Colburn?
I did.
Oh, sorry. Okay. All right, thank you. So moving on with our agenda, we're down to our next, we're back to Corporate Climate Action Plan. The recommendation is that ask for removal and, oh boy, I'm telling you. Sorry. The recommendation is that RFP 2021-24, development of a climate change action plan be awarded to Wood Environment and Infrastructure Solutions in the amount of $66,940 exclusive of HST to assist the township in the development of a corporate climate action plan. Someone to move to put on the floor, please. Moved by Deputy Mayor Carlton, second by Councillor Sutherland. Mr. Dolmar, you want to speak to this, please?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to council. We just wanted to bring forward this report in regards to the climate action plan. We did go out to RFP for quotation and tenders. It was on bids and tenders there. We had 3 consultants bid on it. Wood Environment and Infrastructure Solutions had the best approach to how they were going to tackle the corporate climate action plans. So we were looking to get council's permission to proceed with the $66,940 for this project. They'll be working closely with the Climate Action Committee along with our Climate Action Coordinator as well. And then we're going to have hopefully an action plan completed by the time everything is said with this contractor / vendor.
Thank you, Steve. The chair of the Climate Action Committee, I assume, Councillor Colburn, that you guys discussed this at your committee too?
We did. We reviewed this at the last meeting, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Is there any other questions? Councillor Barfoot, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So exactly what is Wood Environment? So exactly what is this person or this company going to do? And my next question is, I thought we hired a person under contract to work with your committee.
I guess I'll turn over to Steve. Go ahead.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to Councillor Barfoot. We're using this consultant to help us move forward through the BARC and PCC process of the milestones that we need to achieve. Milestones 1 to 3, because milestone 4 would be bringing back a report to council to enact the certain milestones of the climate action plans. This vendor is going to be looking after the corporate portfolio, whereas the internal person that we've hired here will be looking after the community component to this. So there is 2 components to a climate action plan. There's the corporate climate action plan, there's a corporate plan, and then there's a community plan. So our internal staff will be looking after the community plan, but also working with the consultant in conjunction to make sure that we hit all 3 milestones so that we can bring back a report to this council for adoption. And then once we do that milestone, we have it enacted for a year, and then it goes to milestone 5, which then will be the review of it after 1 year being in place.
Thank you, Steve. Go ahead, Councillor Barfoot.
So this is just a 1-year contract?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to Councillor Barfoot, this tender is for the corporate plan, so this will get us, it's roughly about 6 months long to get the corporate plan in place to get going so that we can bring this back to council to create a proper report back to council.
Made me a little nervous when I see wood, because I'm thinking, oh, somebody else is going to come in and tell us we can't cut a tree.
Steve, go ahead.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to Councillor Barfoot, Wood Environment and Infrastructure Solutions actually provides our weather forecasting for the region of Grey County. So they are very understanding of what corporate climate action plans are, and they are coming highly recommended from other municipalities that we did research and reference checks on.
Thank you, Steve. And just, I don't know if you commented on it or not, but this was included in our budget amount, just so council knows. Go ahead, Steve.
Through you, Mr. Mayor. Mr. Mayor, that is correct. This was incorporated in the 2021 budget. We are a little bit over the budget limits, but we will be taking the extras out of the road reserve to cover off the extra costs.
Okay, Councilor Barth.
How much over?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to Councilor Barfoot, $16,000.
Is there any other comments from council or questions? Councilor Coburn, go ahead.
Just would like to request, Mr. Mayor, recorded vote, please.
Certainly. Madam Clerk, please record the vote. Is there any other discussion on motion before us? Seeing none, please proceed with the vote.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. When I call your name, please indicate your vote. Councillor Kathy Moore Coburn.
For.
Councillor Paul Sutherland.
For.
Councillor Carol Barfoot.
For.
Councillor Grant Pringle.
For.
Deputy Mayor Sue Carlton.
For.
And Mayor Dwight Burley.
For.
Thank you, and that carries.
Thank you. So moving on for our agenda, we're now down to the clerk's department. The recommendation is that the 2021 emergency plan program appendices therein are hereby approved, and that bylaw 2021-85 being a bylaw to adopt the 2021 emergency plan, including an emergency program, including emergency plan, be enacted, and that the staff are hereby directed to submit all necessary documents to Emergency Management Ontario prior to year's end. Someone to move put on the floor, please. Moved by Deputy Mayor Carlton, second by Councillor Sutherland. Madam Clerk, you wish to speak to this, please?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So not too many comments other than those that are outlined in my report. This is nothing new to council, being that we are required by law to review these documents on an annual basis. In 2020, the exercise portion of the program was waived by the province. Therefore, we did not have to host a tabletop exercise. That is not the case for 2021. So we have scheduled our tabletop exercise for December 3rd, being this Friday between 9 and 12 a.m. Council is welcome to participate as observers should they wish to do so. I would also note that in 2022, we, being the Director of Operations, myself, and our CEMC are intending to complete a full revamp of this program. As you know, in the past, we have had some issues with compliance. We have corrected those issues. We are now fully in compliance effective 2020. So now we are looking to bring this program beyond compliance. So we're looking to add more detail to this plan, looking to add more detailed appendices. For example, flood mitigation plans, pandemic mitigation plans, things that we've seen in reality, and therefore have the procedures to respond to appropriately, but they're not documented. So we need to be adding more detail to our training programs and more detail to our appendices to respond to the emergencies we know we will face here in Georgian Bluffs. So that is our intention in 2022. We will be starting that right off the hop. Our Director of Operations is taking the training to be an alternative CEMC and assist us in getting this program to where it needs to be to an effective one. So it is our goal in 2022 to move beyond simple compliance and to move to a better functioning, more fulsome program. However, for now, the plan and program are attached for council's consideration. I have also attached the bylaw to enact the program for 2021 so we can forward it off to the province prior to the end of the year. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Any comments or questions from council? Seeing that it was quite a document to read, but well done. If there's no comments or questions from council, a show of hands, all in favor of the motion before us? The motion is carried. We're now down to bylaws. Sorry, I'd already asked the clerk that, but yes, I have to do it in open session. Madam Clerk, has there been any questions? No, I haven't. Thank you. Bylaws. The first bylaw is that bylaw 2021-78 being a bylaw to designate certain lands described as Plan 742 lots 22, 23 in the geographic township of Keppel, not to be lots on a registered plan of subdivision for the purpose of Section 50 of the Planning Act, be read a first, second, third time, finally passed, signed by the mayor and clerk, sealed of the corporation, and endorsed in the bylaw book. Someone to move to put on the floor, please. Moved by Councillor Sullivan, second by Deputy Mayor Carlton. Is there any questions on the motion before us? Seeing none, show of hands, all in favor? Motion's carried. Our next recommendation is whereas council has given consideration to the written comments submitted by the agencies in the decision on proposed zoning bylaw amendment application Z0921 for Brenda and Ronald Robert for property located at 502493 Gray Road 1, and whereas council has considered oral submissions made at the public meeting, therefore be it resolved that the Council of the Towns of George and Bluffs is satisfied that the proposed amendment is consistent with the provincial policy statement 2020 and other governing regulations, and that bylaw 2021-79 be read a first, second, third time, finally passed, signed by the mayor and clerk, sealed of the corporation, and endorsed in the bylaw book. Someone to move to put on the floor, please. Moved by Councillor Pringle, second by Councillor Barfoot. Is there any discussion on the motion before us? See none, show of hands, all in favor? The motion is carried. Down to our next bylaw. The recommendation is whereas council has given consideration to the written comments submitted by the agencies in the decision on proposed zoning bylaw amendment application Z1021 for Eric and Blair Neerhoff for property located at 89 Portland Street, and whereas council has considered oral submissions made at the public meeting, therefore be it resolved that the Council of the Towns of George and Bluffs is satisfied that the proposed amendment is consistent with the provincial policy statement 2020 and other governing regulations, and that bylaw 2021-80 be read a first, second, third time, finally passed, signed by the mayor and clerk, sealed of the corporation, and endorsed in the bylaw book. Someone to move to put on the floor, please. Moved by Councillor Sullivan, second by Councillor Colburn. Is there any discussion on the motion before us? Seeing none, show of hands, all in favor of the motion? The motion is carried. Our next recommendation is whereas council has given consideration to the written comments submitted by the agencies in the decision on proposed zoning bylaw amendment application Z1121 for 660341 Ontario Incorporated, Harold Southern Construction Limited for the property located at 319660 Gray Road 1, and whereas council has considered oral submissions made at the public meeting, therefore be it resolved that the Council of the Towns of George and Bluffs is satisfied that the proposed amendment is consistent with the provincial policy statement 2020 and other governing regulations, and that bylaw 2021-80 be read a first, second, third time, finally passed, signed by the mayor and clerk, sealed of the corporation, and endorsed in the bylaw book. Someone to move to put on the floor, please. Moved by Councillor Colburn, second by Councillor Pringle. Is there any discussion on the motion before us? None. A show of hands, all in favor of the motion? The motion is carried. Our last bylaw here tonight, the recommendation is that bylaw 2021-85 being a bylaw to adopt a 2021 emergency management plan and program for the Township of George and Bluffs be read a first, second, third time, finally passed, signed by the mayor and clerk, sealed of the corporation, and endorsed in the bylaw book. Someone to move to put on the floor, please. Moved by Councillor Pringle, second by Deputy Mayor Carlton. Any discussion on the motion before us? Seeing none, a show of hands, all in favor of the motion? The motion is carried. We're down to unfinished business. We have none. We're now down to new business. And I guess I'll just take them in order as they come. I have a recommendation here that the Council of the Township of George Bluffs approve the closure of the Township Administration Building from 9 a.m. until 10 a.m. on December 16th to allow all staff to participate in a holiday breakfast. Someone to move to put on the floor, please. Moved by Councillor Sutherland, second by Deputy Mayor Carlton. Madam Clerk, you wish to speak to this?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So due to the COVID-19 pandemic, it has been almost over 2 years since staff have met to have a staff meeting. Hence the motion you see in front of you this evening. I have recommended that a staff meeting be called for the morning of December 16th, simply to allow staff to reconnect, discuss topics that the township has covered over the past 2 years, and essentially introduce new staff to one another and attempt to boost morale, team camaraderie, etc. So I have arranged to do so at the Shallow Lake Arena on the morning of December 16th between the hours of 8 and 10 a.m. To allow staff to participate in this breakfast, I would ask that council please respectfully approve closure of this administration office between the hours of 9 and 10 a.m. on that morning to facilitate extra time for staff to enjoy their breakfast, etc. So thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Is there any comments or discussion on the motion before us? Councillor Barfoot, please go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Good idea, Brittany. The only problem I have with it, when the initial motion came out, this was already sort of a done thing. Before that, I never heard of this before this. Always in the past, staff has approached us and said, you know, let's do this and this. Where I take offense is that you took it upon yourself to close the municipal office without checking with council first. You know, you have to be careful. What are the guidelines? I asked the mayor, I said, you know anything about this staff meeting? He didn't know anything about it. So the only thing is, before you start planning things, I think council should know about it. That's my only problem.
Thank you for your comment, Councillor Barfoot. I really feel it's a great suggestion by our acting CEO to get staff together to have this brief get together, and I'm hoping if there's any scraps left over, maybe you can give the council. But anyway, I think it's a great idea. Is there any other comments on the motion before us? See none, a show of hands, all in favor of the motion. Oh, sorry, Councillor Barfoot. Sorry.
You're talking a little different too now. So it's okay for staff to just say, oh, we're going to close the municipal office this day for 2 hours without letting council know. I don't know, Mr. Mayor.
Councillor Barfoot, if I'm not mistaken, I believe the guidelines is that CAO or acting CL has authority to close the municipal office whenever they see fit. Can someone please correct me if I'm wrong? Madam Clerk.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. It is included in the delegated authority bylaw that the CAO has the authority to approve office closures. Now, as an interim, I did not exercise that authority. In my original email to council, I noted it is my recommendation that the office be closed for the duration of 1 hour on this day. Therefore, if council had not approved or does not approve this motion this evening, staff will meet for 1 hour between the hours of 8 and 9. I will not close the office without the support of this council, given that I am interim. Should council wish to revisit that delegated authority, we may do so upon arrival of our new CAO. It would be my recommendation that we revisit the delegated authority on an annual basis regardless. But with that being said, I apologize to council. I never meant to offend or give the impression that I was exercising authority that I did not have.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Any other comments from council? Councilor Pringle, go ahead.
Yeah, thanks, Mr. Mayor. There, yeah, no, I think it's a great idea for the breakfast to get. There's been a lot of new faces come through this township here in the last year and a half, and to have to close the facility for an hour, I think we should be okay for that 1 hour there. I know I'd do the same for our group down there if need to close the place, I would. So I don't see closing it for an hour shouldn't be a big issue, and I think it's a great idea to get the new people to know who they're working with. So I think it should move forward.
Thank you, Councilor Pringle. Is there any other comments from council? Seeing none, Councilor Barfoot, go ahead.
I just want to make it very clear. I have no problem with it. The only problem I had was all of a sudden it's a done deal and we didn't know anything about it. And it seems that this happens a lot lately.
Thank you, Councilor Barfoot. If I see no other questions from council, so I'm going to ask for a show of hands. All in favor of the motion on the floor? The motion is carried. I'm going to go down in order here, Madam Clerk. The first one is the 2022 calendar circulation. Madam Clerk, please go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So as is Christmas is the welcoming of the annual calendar for circulation to the community. So this is something that council does on an annual basis, being approved through the budget process. As council is aware, we accept photo submissions from our public for inclusion in the calendar, and it's become quite a popular item. In the past, we've circulated the calendar through the flyer circulation that is facilitated by the Owen Sound Sun-Times. I will say that in 2021, we received a lot of complaints about that process, being that a lot of people have opted out of the flyer circulation. So it's our recommendation this year that we do not use the flyer circulation to provide people with these calendars. We did look into a direct mail of the calendar to all of our residents. The prices were quite astronomical to do so. So it's our recommendation that we simply circulate the calendar to all local businesses, and I mean all local businesses, as well as available at all township facilities, being the arenas. I've also reached out to the Kemble non-motorized Christmas parade to see if they would be open to having some at that event for pickup. So simply targeting local businesses and ensuring that we're doing our best to distribute calendars for pickup of our residents is the recommendation for circulation this year.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Comments? Councilor Barfoot, go ahead. Your mic, please.
How about the places that sell or garbage bag tags? Because they're already making a little money on the tags, so they'd be happy to do it, I'm sure.
Okay. Thank you, Madam Clerk. Deputy Mayor Carlton, go ahead.
Thank you. I should also comment that it's not just the flyers that people aren't getting, but anybody on a community mailbox doesn't get that type of thing delivered to them. And with Canada Post taking more and more of us to community mailboxes, there's less access for that type of thing. So it's good to be able to pick them up in the local stores.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. I might say, Madam Clerk, that I will be attending the Kemble non-motorized Santa Claus parade Saturday, and I would gladly hand out the calendars to any ratepayer that would like to have it. They could see my white head and just come to me, and I would gladly give it to them. Okay. Okay, Madam Clerk, you're down to your next one. Is your COVID-19 emergency declaration.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just wanted to note that the local CEMC group hosted by Grey County met this week to discuss the COVID-19 declared emergency, both at the county level as well as at the lower tier levels. It is the consensus generally throughout Grey County that we, being the lower tiers, maintain our emergency declarations pending lifting of the county level emergency declaration, which is to be reviewed in the new year. So we will be meeting again on January 7th to discuss termination of that emergency declaration, and that will come in coordination with the medical officer of health, being Dr. Era, who is present at these meetings as well. So I simply wanted to update council as at this time, it is our recommendation that we stay in line with the county and discuss releasing that emergency declaration in the new year.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Any questions on that emergency plan declaration? The clerk and I do attend these Grey County group meetings, and it was a consensus that we would follow the lead of the county, so we're consistent throughout the municipality. So, Madam Clerk, there's no questions on that, so we'll move down to your next one, Bill 27, Working for Workers Act.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So just today, the province of Ontario gave third reading to Bill 27, which amended the Employment Standards Act in various ways. But the way I wish to notify you of this evening reads as follows, being that the Employment Standards Act has been amended to impose a requirement on employers that employ 25 or more employees to have a written policy with respect to disconnecting from work. The term disconnecting from work is defined to mean not engaging in work-related communications, including emails, telephone calls, video calls, or sending or reviewing of other messages, so as to be free from the performance of work. So just today, the province of Ontario approved this. Therefore, the township is now responsible to create a policy to govern this specific section of the Employment Standards Act, which our HR manager will be doing. We're still waiting for more information to be released as to what that means for example, our operations department, being those that are on call, or members of senior management who are expected or need to be on call more regularly. So I simply wanted to provide council an update that this is a change that we are considering, and we will update council as necessary.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Does council have any questions or comments? See none? Okay, I'm going to move on with our agenda then. Other than Deputy Mayor has a notice of motion, she'll be forward to our next council meeting. Is there any other council member who wish to bring a notice of motion? Deputy Mayor, you're playing with your dog. How's he making out?
He's had 2 hours of being really good, so I need to keep him active for a few more minutes.
Okay, I see no other notice of motions coming forward, so I'm going to move down to our closed session item. The recommendation is that the Council of the Township of George Monblas move into closed session at 7:11 p.m. with the interim CEO clerk to discuss 1, personal matters about identifiable individual, including municipal or local board employees. Someone to move to put on the floor, please. Moved by Councillor Colburn, or Councillor Colburn, second by Councillor Barfoot. Do you want to speak to?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just wanted to note that our HR manager was originally included in the motion. The motion has been amended to remove our HR manager simply because she's been called to deal with another matter this evening.
Okay, thank you. So a show of hands, all in favor of going in camera? The motion is carried. We are now in closed session. So Madam Clerk, you tell me when I can proceed. Well, I'm having trouble tonight to get anyone to raise their hand, so.
Okay, Brian, we are now ready to move back into open session. If you can please enable the live stream.
Deputy Mayor, you should have a steak there to feed your pup.
He eats lots.
Okay, we are now back to open session. Council moved into closed session to discuss matters under closed meeting exemption B of section 239 of the Municipal Act. As a result of closed discussions, bylaw 2021-83 is presented for consideration. And I'll read the recommendation. That bylaw 2021-83 being a bylaw to appoint an acting treasurer be read a first, second, third time, finally passed, signed by the mayor and clerk, sealed the seal of the corporation, and endorsed in the bylaw book. Someone to move to put on the floor, please. Moved by Councillor Sutherland, second by Councillor Coburn. A question, Madam Clerk, for the chair. At this time, we do not state the name.
The name is stated in the bylaw, but for the motion purposes, we do not have to state her name.
Okay. All right. Just want to clarify that. Okay. A show of hands, all in favor. The motion is carried. We're now down to our confirming bylaw. The bylaw number 2021-86 being a bylaw to confirm the proceedings of council on December 1st, 2021 be read a first, second, third time, finally passed, signed by the mayor and clerk, sealed to the corporation, and endorsed in the bylaw book. Someone to move put on the floor, please. Moved by Councillor Barfoot, second by Deputy Mayor Carlton. Is there any discussion on the motion before us? Seeing none, show of hands, all in favor. The motion is carried. Our next meeting is December 8th at 5 o'clock. And please, if anybody wants to attend our emergency plan exercise as an observer Friday, please attend. So one more motion, a motion to adjourn, please. Moved by Councillor Sutherland, second by Councillor Pringle. Show of hands, all in favor of adjournment. We are adjourned. Thank you, everybody.